You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Hey y'all, spooky season is here. And if you're looking for a show to whet your appetite for a little haunted history, then I'd like to invite you to check out Southern Gothic, a chart-topping history podcast that explores some of the most infamous legends, folklore, ghost stories, and hauntings of the American South. We've covered all sorts of stuff from the Bell Witch of Tennessee to the disappearance of the Confederate submarine, the H.L. Hunley. Not to mention our deep dives into the local lore of some of America's oldest and most haunted cities, like New Orleans, Charleston, and St. Augustine. So, if you're ready for a little good old-fashioned Halloween storytelling with a commitment to quality historical research, then be sure to check out Southern Gothic today. It's available now on all your favorite podcast apps.
Hi, this is Katie.
And this is Nathan.
And you're listening to Queen's Podcast, the show about women in history. Well, hello, Nathan.
What's going on, Katie?
Nathan, this is our last episode for season 7.
I know it's the last episode, but I am so excited that we're ending it on a bang.
I know. Maybe 5 years ago, we did a Patreon episode that was like the most what the fuck moments from Queen's Podcast ever. I feel like if we ever do another one, the end of this episode is going to make it into the what the fuck moments of Queen's Podcast.
Like, seriously, what the fuck moments?
What the fuck? But no, before we get into it, Nathan, season 7, who was your favorite person to cover? What was your favorite thing that we covered?
Oh my gosh, there were so many good ones. Oh my gosh. I think the crown for me goes to Dagmar. It
Dagmar.
goes to Dagmar. Mhm.
What a life. What a roller coaster of a life that
know,
was.
and
Yeah.
Like you don't realize, like, yes, she was so strong and powerful and wonderful, but she was so cold to her female children. And it was just so weird to see this dichotomy of who this person was in public versus how they were to their children. It was just so fascinating to kind of see that side of it. What about you? What was your favorite?
I think Tina Turner was my favorite.
Ooh, that was a good one. And it started the season off too.
Yeah. Also, for anybody that doesn't know, we take the summers off. We'll still be over on Patreon being absolute goofballs.
We're not going away. We're always here. We're just behind a paywall so we can say some more inappropriate things.
So we're not going anywhere, but this is our last new episode on the main feed until I think in August we're gonna have a guest on, and so that'll be new. So until August.
Ooh, I can't wait for that.
Maybe that'll be another historical mystery.
I don't know.
With Tandy, our resident psychic. So that is all coming up this summer. We're going to take a little break. But before we do, we got to finish the life of Eva Peron, a.k.a. Evita. Nathan, where did we leave off?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is kind of, to me, a Cinderella story, if you will.
With just some Nazis.
Which is just some side Nazis on the end, and a couple fascists sprinkled in.
Yeah.
Also, she was born in a small town in Argentina in 1919. But at the age of 15, she made her way to Buenos Aires to become an actress. After struggling for many years, she finally makes a name for herself in the radio industry.
She becomes one of the highest paid radio actresses in the entire country by just age 23. So she's in everybody's homes every day of the week, and she is just a household name. And then in 1944, there was a charity event hosted by a government official, a powerful military guy named Juan Perón, who was also the Secretary of Labor. And it was love at first sight. They were basically inseparable from then on.
Yeah, and Perón, super popular in the government with the everyday person.
Mhm.
So the everyday person was like, oh, he's great. We love him. Yes. But the oligarchs, not so much. So, like
Mm-mm.
we discussed in the last episode, there had been a devastating earthquake that killed thousands and thousands of people, and Perón was instrumental in actually helping raise a lot of money for these people. So, everyone is looking at him like, okay, this guy actually kind of wants to help us.
Right.
And knowing what we know about how Ava feels about the rich and powerful, always screwing over the poor, it's probably no surprise here that she fell for him.
Not at all. The two moved in together pretty much immediately, which was scandalous.
Uh-huh.
I kept reading unmarried government officials didn't live with their quote unquote mistresses openly. Why everything I read called her his mistress, but he's not married. So wouldn't it just be your
So,
girlfriend?
yeah, I guess.
Anyway, that's just me getting caught up in dumb details. No, they lived together before getting married, which was a scandal. They did it anyway. They didn't give a fuck. And because of this, Eva was immediately thrown into Juan's inner circle of really important government and military dudes.
Yeah, and Eva didn't know anything about politics.
Mm-mm.
Zilch, nada.
Yeah.
So she didn't ever try to debate or give her opinion or do anything at first.
Yeah.
In fact, if someone was like, "Hey, why's your girlfriend here?" She'd be like, "Oh, don't pay attention. Just
Oh,
silly little
me.
me. I'm just gonna get you some
Oh,
drinks and some snacks. Anybody hungry?"
me.
Um,
She's like, oh, I'm not even listening. Pretend I'm not here.
and then when they were alone again, she'd often ask Juan lots of questions and try to understand what was going on. And she's like, "How can I help?"
How can I help? Like, she really was interested and wanted to make a difference. So Perón had very, very ambitious goals for his career. So he kind of thought, like a lot of people thought Eva was a weird choice for him because he was so ambitious. And remember how we talked about in the first episode, the rumor was that she slept around quite a lot to get where she got in her career, which might be true, maybe. So people thought that's a weird choice, which makes me think that I think they both found each other advantageous for their careers, but I do think they were in love because he could have picked somebody with a better reputation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. She had some things that would not be looked at kindly back in the
Yeah.
day. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's let's not pretend that their relationship wasn't beneficial for them both, though,
Right. Right.
because for Eva, it's a huge jump in social status, and for
Yeah.
him, he viewed Eva as a good platform to get his message across.
Mm-hmm.
She's this up and coming radio star with a platform where she's literally in people's homes every single
Yeah.
day. And she's not too shy to be preaching the pro Perón content at all.
So she had the people's ear. The government regime at the time was really big into controlling what the media put out. Like censorship was a thing and free press was not a thing, which we, official stance, not cool, not cool. Hot take.
Yeah, we'd be screwed. We'd be screwed.
Oh my God. Oh my God. My big fucking mouth. Jeez. Yeah. So a few months after Eva and Juan met, it was determined so that the government could more easily censor the radio that all the radio workers needed to join one union and they needed to pick a president, and that's going to be the face of the union.
The one that gets shit done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And so they had to elect a president, and that is how Eva Duartes becomes the president of the one and only radio union in all of Argentina. So not too shabby.
Bitches get shit done. Okay. So did Perón bribe someone on the inside to elect her? Maybe.
It's not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. Maybe Perón pushed a little and the others kind of were like, yeah, that's actually a good idea. Either way, it's a huge step up for Eva.
And as Juan Perón's status grew, so did Eva's. And she started to realize that the working class fucking loved her. The upper class found her irritating as hell. Like, who is this little country bumpkin actress who the fuck is this? And why do people love her so much? The oligarchs and the rich were very anti-Eva Duartes, let me tell you what.
Now, we don't have much time to go into the ins and outs politically, but what you need to know is that when Juan Perón became vice president, his base of supporters was growing every single day.
Yes.
And they're the poor, working class, uneducated, lots of like farmers who have moved into the big cities, like looking for work.
Yeah, I think that when they just heard like what Perón was supporting, it gave them hope and it gave them representation in a system that was not like there's never been someone being like, I want to hear what the farmers have to say.
Yeah.
And so it's probably not surprising that they were like, ride or die for this motherfucker. Like they were an intense group of supporters.
Yeah. And well, they had been not listened to for so long, so that
Yeah.
someone's finally listening to you. You're going to be like, yeah, we love you.
And so his base is moving to Buenos Aires, which had been largely like upper class up until this point. And so they're a bit like, you mean the peasants are coming here? Here? Oh, they didn't like it.
The elite view Eva as basically this social climbing, slutty McSlut phase. So
Yeah.
when Perón appoints one of Eva's friends to a post in the government, they are like, all right, we got him. We got him. He appointed like one of her BFFs. This is corruption. You need to resign. And then arrested, which he did. He was arrested in October of 1945.
Anybody in the Argentinian government back then calling anybody else corrupt is laughable because they were all so fucking corrupt. I mean, all politicians are, but at the time, for the time and the place specifically, it was a very, we'll get to it. I'm getting ahead of myself. Like you were saying, he got arrested in October 1945. When we say that his supporters went nuts, it is an understatement. They went bananas. They went bananas and nuts. It was just a whole Sunday ice cream. Like, any way. They just, it was mayhem. And so hundreds of thousands of supporters. Why are you laughing at me?
Mayhem?
Mayhem? Y'all, it was mayhem. They threw a protest and y'all, I was fit to be tied. This is really serious, Nathan. This is serious history. If you could fucking pay attention.
Stop. You're not making it better.
I wish y'all could see his face. You're beat red, Nathan. I didn't even say anything that funny. What are you doing?
Mayhem. I don't know why that got me, but it did. These things
let's
happen.
reel it.
All right.
I'm going to try that again.
No, you keep it. It's gold.
Blooper reel. But no, there was hundreds of thousands of protesters show up. Like, the reports are somewhere between 200,000 and 350,000 Perón supporters show up. And they are gathered in the main square, like the town square of Buenos Aires. It's called Plaza de Mayo, Mayhem in the Mayo. And they are pissed, rioting. They've got posters. They're chanting, "Let Perón out. Let Perón out." Yeah.
So where was Eva during all of this? Like, was she mayhem in the Mayo with everybody else?
Was she mayhem in the Plaza de Mayo with all the gang? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, according to some accounts written by Juan.
Stop it.
So according to some accounts written by Juan the following year, she organized the whole thing herself.
So this, I'm imagining like a movie montage at this point of her just like knocking on doors, speaking in front of big crowds, painting signs, all while like Katy Perry's Eye of the Tiger is playing during this
Which,
montage.
Spoiler alert, if this happens in the musical Evita, Katie and I have no idea. We've actually never seen it.
We haven't seen the movie yet.
If there are listeners out here like Nathan and Katie, that is actually in the movie.
I bet it is going to be. Katy Perry's Eye of the Tiger and everything.
But they are crying for justice at this point.
Yeah. So according to Perón, like, because like you said, a year later, he like writes an article or something about this whole thing. And according to him, he's like, Eva was doing everything. And then she was like up in front of the crowds, giving speeches, being like, "We won't back down." And the crowd goes wild.
Mm.
Eva, Eva, Eva.
Mm, did that really happen?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably
No.
not.
Sorry,
Probably
guys.
not.
It's a great scene. Like, hello.
It makes fantastic theatrics. It makes great storytelling, but it is probably fabricated. Like, it's probably not real.
Yeah, and of course you're always going to have your people who are like, oh my God, of course she was there. Of course she was marching and screaming with the crowds. But that could be what they remember just because Perón was just actively putting that out, retelling those events over and over and over and painting her as like this central figure to this huge uprising.
Right. You know what it made me think of? Like, did you ever read 1984?
Yes.
So you know how he's like reading the newspaper one day and it says, Oceania has always been at war with Eurasia. And he was like, I feel like I remember, though, we were at peace with Eurasia last year. And the newspapers are just like, no, Oceania has always been at war with Eurasia. That's what it kind of reminded me of, like sort of like, oh, but I don't remember Eva being there, and him being like, well, she was. And I have this gun to back me up with it, like.
And you're like, okay,
but
yeah, she was totally there.
We're going to get in more to it because, like, Juan Perón was probably not a great guy in the end. A controversial statement. It's like our first sign in our research that I was like, oh, that's a little bit mind control-y,
Ugh, icky. But then there was a guy who led the meatpacking union named Reyes who was like, hey, if she was there, I didn't see her. And she was certainly not at the front of the lines because I saw that. And then another guy who was the head of the railroad union was like, I was actually looking for her and I didn't see anything.
Yeah. So what do we think? Because we have no idea. She's never said one way or the other. She did write something being like, I'm going to give y'all that day from my perspective one day. But right now, all you need to know is the light came from the people. And that feels like to me, like she was being like, I'm going to wait and see like in 10 years how people are talking about that day before I come up with my own version.
I'm taking a pass on that for now.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think she was sitting at home? Do you think she was there and maybe just not leading? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it may have been something that started without her, and then maybe she just made a guest appearance and just kind of snuck down there, and
or maybe she was sitting at home because that all shit sounds scary.
I don't know. Being someone like that in a big old mob of people doesn't sound like it would be safe.
But now, why would Juan try to paint? Why do we think Juan would try to paint her as like this boots on the ground, was definitely there type person if she wasn't? What's his angle there?
I think it's all because of the image. I think he's very caught up in making it appear that we are your leaders. We are you. We are part of you. I think he's trying to create a narrative of look at how
we're one of y'all.
Yeah, exactly. And this is just one of those narratives he can push through the media to get people to just fall in love with them.
I think it's interesting how obsessed he was with making sure that like the lower class, the poorer people saw him as hope. But he wasn't inviting anybody over because they don't get it twisted. They lived in a mansion, We could speculate all day. Soon after the protest, Juan was released from prison and he and Eva hightail it to Junín, remember like where her mom and them are still living. They get married on October 22nd, just 4 days after he was released from prison, in a civil ceremony in Junín.
Yeah. Now, our lovely Eva Duarte's is now Eva Perón. So let's just leave it right there and let's top off our drinks and come on right back and dive right back in.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Hello everyone, Takuya here.
And I'm Gabby.
And we are the hosts of History of Everything, a podcast which you can probably guess by the name is, it's about everything. Do you want to know why people thought potatoes were evil and would give you syphilis? Are you curious about all the stories of the terrible and stupid ways that people have kicked the bucket over the years? Do you want to hear tales about all of the different badasses of history and the lives that they had brought to life? Well, if so, then look no further. History of Everything is just the right podcast for you. It's available on Spotify, Pandora, and anywhere else that you get your podcast from. Join us for some fun and just see how weird and wacky history can be.
Okay, we're back, Nathan, and we are hitting the campaign trail with this one. Yes. Juan is running for president as a member of the Labor Party, and his beautiful and charismatic brand new wife is right by his side. And this is a huge shift because politicians really didn't bring their wives with them. And if they did, they were just kind of in the audience. And so the first lady hopeful, who was part of the campaigns, she wasn't just standing behind him being part of the scenery. She was standing next to him hand in hand. And that was revolutionary.
Yeah, Perón is like the OG wife guy. He knew a lot of his success and popularity was associated with his marriage to Eva. And he relied on that popularity heavily, maybe a little too much.
He may have overestimated her popularity in one instance. In the early days, Perón thought like, oh, I've got a bunch of speeches to do. I'm just going to send Eva to do the one just for the women. And at the point, women don't have the right to vote yet. So he's like, you just go talk to them. They can't vote anyway. And he thought that was going to be fine. These women were so fucking pissed that Perón had skipped on speaking to them himself, that they booed her off the stage and were chanting, "We want Perón." A lot of times when you research her, it's like just across the board, she was Perón's golden ticket, basically. And again, I think that comes a lot from what Perón was painting himself, because these women booed this bitch off the stage and was like, you think you can just ignore us and just send your wife just because we're women?
I can totally give off that vibe where they wouldn't think it would come across that way. If the woman doesn't have the right to vote, they're complaining about all these things. They want stuff to get done. Don't send your wife who also can't vote and also can't do these things and also
right?
What's going to get done? Nothing.
And so she was booed, and I bet that was a humble sandwich right there. Like,
right?
Here is your order of humility. There you go.
But either way, Juan won.
Juan.
He's one in a million.
He's
he is one in a million.
Oh, he is one in a million.
So Juan won, and he won on June 5th, 1946, when he was sworn in as president of Argentina. And our girl is first lady, so not too shabby for an illegitimate girl from the country.
Not at all.
Props to her.
Speaking of which, it's around this time that is probably when Eva went back and doctored her birth certificate and her all her information Hunin to say that she was maybe a little bit younger. But also, so she wanted to eradicate that. Remember, she's still so embarrassed that she was illegitimate, that her parents weren't married, which I think is so funny because Juan's parents weren't married either. And he was just always like, so? Well, that ain't got shit to do with me, But yeah, she started trying to craft a secondary narrative about her childhood in case she got asked. And anyway, we all know, bitch.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we already know that the press is run by the government, so they're like, who cares? Just print it up.
Yeah.
Just sell it.
Just her parents were married. It was great. Let's do it. Yeah.
And this is about the time that she was given the name Evita, which it's just a cute little name. Like, if your name is William, but your mom and closest friends call you Billy.
Yeah.
And she wanted Perón's followers to think of her as a friend. She wanted them to think of her as one of them. So it's unclear if the people started calling her Evita and she just adopted it, or she encouraged them to do that, because again, that's that Perón's like, oh, people call her Evita. And it's like, nobody's ever called her that. And he's like, but people call her Evita.
People call her Evita. Oh, okay, sure. People call her fucking Evita. Sure. Yeah, like it's totally possible that they just planted a story that was like, or any other first lady wouldn't want you to call her in such a familiar term. This first lady loves it. First ladies, they're just like us. They have nicknames, you know.
One of us, one of us. However, one thing that was really different with Evita and other first ladies is that Evita was really out there busting her fucking ass as a first lady.
Love her or hate her, you cannot say this woman didn't have a work ethic like nobody's business. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of people expected her to show up and kind of like phone it in after her husband got elected and be like, oh, I'm sick. But she showed up to her office every single day, often working 12-hour days. She's constantly going out to factories, asking the workers how their conditions are, what she can do to make it better, doing that with working mothers as well. Just asking again that question of how can I help you? Just like she asked her husband so long ago.
Yeah. Many first ladies often had designated charities. And we see that a lot today, too. Like when Michelle Obama was first lady, she adopted charities around children's health. I think the current first lady, something education, question mark. So that was really common back then, too. But Evita actually didn't like the word charity because she believed that, quote unquote, charity is what rich people had left over, and they just didn't like, it sat with her the wrong way to be like, oh yes, I'm so rich and here's my scraps, that's my charity for the peasants. You know, she was like, in her head, she's like, there shouldn't be this wealth disparity. That's not a word.
Disparity.
Discrepancy.
Discrepancy.
We're killing it. There shouldn't be this wage discrepancy. There should be a level playing field anyway. So it's not charity. I'm just doing what people should have been doing already. That's kind of like her mindset. I've never heard anybody talk about charity work that way before, and I found that interesting.
Yeah. It's very interesting to think of it that way. It shouldn't be thought of as charity.
It should. Yeah.
I don't know.
But also she's not doing charity either. She is like going to factories and being like, oh, when was your last break? Oh, well, tell your boss that you need to get more breaks, you know, stuff like that.
And the Perón administration did a lot of good. And I say it in that tone for a reason, because they did a lot of bad too.
Because we know.
we know they were not great guys. They got free healthcare done, parental leave, free schooling, workers' rights. And these are just to name a few of the social programs that they gave to the people under Perón's presidency.
Yeah.
And even bigger, women got the right to vote under Perón. So yay for that.
You know what it kept making me think of? All these good things that, do you remember when we were covering Sichi and we talked about all those good things that were good for society, for the Chinese at the time? And we were like, okay, is she doing it because she actually cares about advancing her people, or is she doing it because it makes her look good? And in the end, does intent matter if people are getting the better life? It made me think about that here too. Or it's like, and don't worry, we know we're going to get to some of the stuff, the fucked up shit he was doing, besides just like, he was probably giving the women the right to vote because he knows they're going to vote for him. Yeah. And like get more.
That's why he's crafted this narrative about this powerful wife who, you know, like that's why he's done this. Yeah.
If he's just doing it for selfish reasons, doesn't matter so long as it still happened. It's such a, I don't know what the answer is. Just like with Sichi, I'm not really sure what the answer is, but I thought that was an interesting parallel.
No, I agree. No arguments here. The administration is corrupt. He built this around this cult of personality that he has, like crafted that narrative of his, you know, stronghold wife joining the front lines of a big mob of people when that probably didn't happen.
It was called Peronissimo.
Oh, Peronissimo.
Peronissimo. I don't know why we're Italian when we're doing it.
Yeah, we're not.
The cult of personality I found really interesting. And we don't have to talk about this long because I don't want to talk about current politics, but the Peronissimos kind of remind me a bit of the MAGA supporters.
Very similar. There's just like this crafted narrative around this strong man type of personality and
cult of personality.
Yeah.
Do you see that parallel?
Yeah, I can see like I have so many followers and they're so loud and supportive that
they're so ride or die.
That I can do whatever I want and get away with it.
Yeah, they were doing a lot of good and giving support to groups of people who had never felt supported before, which we love. But Peron was doing some shitty shit too.
So before Peron had got into politics, he traveled Europe in the military, and this guy was a big old fan of fascism.
Loved it. Couldn't get enough. Fascism, turn to the left. Like, he was just so into it.
And this guy hated the U.S., did not like the UK. He's like, hey, that Mussolini guy, maybe Peronissimo, maybe that Mussolini. He's got some ideas. I don't know why the Pope has
the
also.
Pope.
The Pope has entered the chat.
Oh my gosh, yeah. He thought Mussolini just knew how to run a show.
Ugh.
He was like, there's some really good ideas. And under Peron in Argentina, like we said, he censored journalisms, political rivals were imprisoned, and he opened up the country for criminals of war, like World War II, people that weren't, not like these people that were hiding from their government because of what they did in World War II, like generals, Nazi generals who were awaiting trial. He was like, y'all can come here. I won't extradite you.
Oh, gosh. Oh.
Actual factual Nazis. Now, I did read one thing. It's not to give him a pass for this or anything. He thought, because this is the Cold War's kicking off, who's been fighting the Soviet Union for the last 10 years and actually making good headway fighting the Soviets? The Nazis. So let me invite the Nazis here. So if the Cold War actually becomes actual nuclear war, we know how to fight the Soviets. I don't know if I believe that.
I don't.
But okay. You're like, I think he just wanted to be friends with Nazis.
Yeah, I don't see how, because I don't know, you can defeat the Russians just the same way that other people do.
He definitely was like, y'all did a lot of good stuff. Y'all censored a lot of people. Y'all threw a lot of people in jail.
Oh, gosh. Ugh,
I know. Ugh.
So, yay.
Yay.
Votes for women and free healthcare.
Boo for Nazis. And censoring people and throwing people in prison. All right, let's switch gears just a little bit.
Clank.
Clank, clank. We are going on a tour of Europe, Nathan. It is called the Rainbow Tour.
Oh my
and
God.
it is probably what Evita is most famous for. And unfortunately, it has nothing to do with gay pride, which was disappointing.
Yeah, I don't suspect that gay pride was a thing back in the post-World War II. Yeah.
Yeah, for the fascists, probably weren't super into it. But no, during World War II, because Argentina was technically neutral, they were in their quarantine era. Basically, they weren't really dealing with other countries much. They were trying to just keep to themselves. And now that that's over, we got this a beautiful, charismatic first lady. Let's put her on display for the rest of the world to see.
I love it. The government of Spain invited Juan to come for a visit, but he had his hands full. You know, he's handing out rights with one hand and taking rights away with the other. But he was like, you know, a tour of Europe would actually be pretty great publicity. I just don't have the time to do it. So who could I...
It was like, me. Oh my God, let me do it. Let me fucking do it. Please, oh my God, pick me.
Direct quote.
Direct quote. She was a pick-me girl, if you will. So, yeah, it was decided that Evita's going on tour to represent Argentina in Europe in a really really grand scale.
So how do you think she felt at this point? Do you think she's like super excited because she's got this opportunity because she is kind of the pick me girl? Do you think she's
Yeah.
nervous because it's like, oh shit, what have I gotten myself into?
She has never left Argentina before. This will be her first time getting on a plane.
Okay.
Yeah, like this one, exciting because we know she likes to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I would think nerve-wracking because she's not going alone. She had her team, but she's not going with her husband. She's not going with any family. What if I get booed again? Yeah, I think it was probably excited, nervous, a bit of everything. What do you think?
All of the above. All of the above. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think she's excited, but I would think she does kind of know that maybe there are people out there that don't like her because if she didn't, she gonna find out.
Maybe she had no idea. I don't know that if people in Argentina knew how other countries were viewing them. If they're censoring the media, you know, they're not going to be printing, oh, and those assholes in France really hate us.
But I would hope that her husband at least would prep her for the reality of the situation. Yeah, like remember how you were booed in front of this crowd of women? You may get booed in front of big crowds of countries of people. Like I would hope he would prepare her for something like that.
Either way, June 1947, she set out for her tour of Spain, Italy, Portugal, France, Switzerland, Brazil, and Monaco. Since the original invitation came from Spain, but Spain was still considered a little fascist-leaning, that's why they tagged on all the other countries. They declared it wasn't a political tour. It was just a way for Argentina to re-enter society after this quarantine era. It was a tour of goodwill, so everybody could see how... I mean, if she's the face of the country and she's just this happy, smiling, beautiful woman, that's going to be great PR for Argentina if it goes the way that they want it to. She's going.
She's going. And we're not going to have time to go over all of the going that she did on her tour. But we can give you some high and low lights. She started in Spain, where everybody love her. And I think that's a theme that kind of remained for a while. So much so that Evita received the country's highest decoration. She was inducted into the Royal Order of Isabella the Catholic.
We know her. We've talked about her so many times.
I think she wins the award of most guest appearances in or guest mentions.
I think she might. Yeah, she might. For real, though. Isabella of Castile pops up in the most random places. And I think Evita even went and visited her grave.
Yeah, her and Ferdinand's grave.
So yeah, she got the Royal Order of Isabella the Catholic, which, okay.
She went to Rome.
With the Pope!
Yes, thank you. And the Italians were a little less enthusiastic about her. Enthusiastic about her. Yeah, yes.
Enthusiastic. I like it.
Enthusiastic.
From there, she went to France. And we are just hitting places where the people's enthusiasm about her is just going down and down. They were not excited to see her in France. The King of England, because she wanted to go to England and they just kept like leaving her on red. But the King of England was in France when she got there, George VI, and he refused a meeting with her. Like finally he was like, I can't just leave these on red. Tell her no, I do not want to meet with her.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure she was like fucking rude, but you have to remember that the Nazis were bombing the shit out of England just like 3 years prior. And your country is taking them in. That would have looked so bad to the British people.
Oh, yeah, 100%. The British people, the French even, because they got bombed the hell out of too. Like, they're like, we're not fans of you because you've got all those war criminals that help plan some of that stuff against us over in your country right now. No, thank you.
Her meeting with the French president, Charles de Gaulle, went fine. But it was nothing like the reception that she got in Spain.
Mm-hmm. But alas, we are approaching the end and the low point of the Rainbow Tour, and that's Switzerland. They didn't just like not like her. They hated her guts. They were not fans.
If I was her, I would not have felt safe from some of the things that I was reading.
Yeah, there's some scary stuff. So she's riding in a car after arriving in Switzerland, and people are crowding around it. And then a bunch of people start throwing rocks at the windows and the windshields of the car, and it starts cracking the windshield. And I'm sure she's ducking for safety. Like, oh my gosh, like somebody could have actually been hurt out of that.
Scary. Also, while in Switzerland doing an official visit with the foreign ministry people, the crowd literally throws tomatoes and eggs at her. I didn't know people actually did that outside of like medieval, like TV shows set in medieval times. They were throwing rotten food at her. What a roller coaster of a tour. Meeting the Pope, getting belted by eggs. Like all in a day's work for Eva.
She had to have been at some point been like, okay, why are these people so angry? Because she had never left Argentina. So maybe she'd never really stopped and educated herself on why fascism is bad, and how countries view that, and why people are so pissed off at, her and her husband for harboring Nazis and what that all represented.
And I feel like if she would have come home from this tour and been like, hey guys, we need to move away from fascism, that would be her reputation and legacy, because it's so torn right now. It would be a lot less, but unfortunately that's not what she did.
So her tour was met with mixed reviews, to say the least, but she did make it on the cover of Time magazine, which to this day is still a pretty big deal.
Nathan, click on that link. I want you to look at the cover of this magazine. I don't know why it's so funny to me. I can link it in the show notes too.
Oh my gosh.
It's just because, the Argentinian flag is a sun. And so it's just her face on looks like is maybe supposed to be a sun in the back. It is so of its time in the 1940s, 1950s. It's so cheesy.
It's got a sense of that nostalgia to it. It's definitely, oh God.
It just made me laugh. But hey, she's on the cover of Time fucking magazine. That is, like you said, that's huge today.
The headline read, Evita, Between Two Worlds, Argentina and a Rainbow.
Ooh, I like that.
So even if the tour wasn't a success from the beginning to end, it made her famous as fuck. I feel like we could argue that this has always been her main objective in life. It really has.
She really wanted to be famous. Yeah. Lover, hater, anywhere in between. She's one of the most famous people in the world.
Let's let her bask in the glory of this moment for a second before we go down some really, really weird and dark things. And let's hear from a word from our sponsors first.
So now we are back. And after getting back from the Rainbow Tour, even though it wasn't received 100% positively, Eva is energized. She is just feeling on top of the fucking world. And this is when she attacks women's suffrage head on. So in Perón's time as president, women get the vote. But at this point, when she gets back from the Rainbow Tour, that hasn't gone through yet. This was a huge deal for Eva. She became very single-minded about we are getting women the vote. She rallied supporters, and she was a big part of the movement in 1947 when they did get the vote. And so that's awesome.
Yeah, and she did not take a break from working. She hit the ground running.
She was running.
And it said at this point in her life, she was working 18 to 20 hours a day.
20 hours a day?
Yeah. So there shouldn't be any surprises here that her health really took a hit.
You can't work 20 hours a day and not exhaust yourself. Everyone was like, girl, of course you're sick. You're exhausted. And she was just like, I'm fine. Narrator voice. She was not fine.
But in her mind, regardless of what you think about her, she really did think she was changing the world. She's building hospitals, schools, daycare centers, and anyone who asked where the money for all this was coming from might find themselves in jail. But hey,
But look, a new school.
yeah.
Look at that. Hey, don't go to prison. Don't ask too many questions about where the funds are coming from. Boop, boop.
I'm sure that's one of the songs in Evita. Yeah, I'm pretty
Boop,
sure.
boop. Yep.
Now, let's fast forward.
Zoop.
Few years later, it's 1951, and it's time for the next election. And Juan Perón had ratified a new constitution that allowed him to run for a second term. How convenient.
How convenient. Look.
So he's ready to hit the campaign trail again. And that's when the trade unions approached him with a very odd demand. So they said, we will blindly support you if you put Evita as your running mate for vice president.
Okay. I mean, they just got the vote. I like that. In reality, though, this was never going to happen. Change for women was happening fast, but not that fast. Like, they just got the right to vote a few years ago. And this is a sexist society still.
Yeah.
The Peronissimo thing, that is more of like a male thing. But then the main force behind Perón is the military, and the military hates Evita. They are like, one, uterus.
Just
Fuck
can't
that.
trust it. Can't trust it.
Can't trust it. Gonna be floating around. She's gonna get cramps one day and set the whole place on fire. Can't trust it. Then they were like, two, she got to where she is from sleeping around. So not only is she a woman, she's a woman that enjoys sex. And so we also really hate that. Maybe. And they were just like, we can't have somebody that close to real power that just doesn't have a perfect reputation and has a uterus.
But Eva probably super loved the idea, even if she couldn't accept it, because, thank you. Thank you so much for nominating me. This is it's just an honor being nominated.
Yes. You know what? You probably, because the people of the unions, which is her
bread and butter. Yeah.
Yeah. They're the ones saying that we want her on the ticket. And so I'm sure she was super flattered. I'm sure she was very energized by that,
But there was also another reason that her opposers had something against her, and that was her health.
Yeah.
We mentioned that after she returned from the Rainbow Tour, she was just exhausted. Well, it seems like she never quite shook that off, and she consistently just got weaker and weaker and weaker over the last few years.
In 1950, she had fainted in public, and she got rushed to the hospital, and the public was told that she had her appendix removed. But this is probably when they discovered that she had like stage 4 cervical cancer.
Okay. And some shady shit might have happened at this time. Many believe that doctors told Juan that Eva had cancer, and he never really told her the severity of the diagnosis. Like, was it true, though? Is he trying to shield it from her? Like, is he trying to keep her cancer diagnosis?
It's so fucked up to think about how back then a doctor would just tell a patient, a grown-ass woman that is their patient, they would just tell her husband and then let her husband decide how to tell her, or if he even wanted to. That is so fucked up. History, not great to women, historically, a lot of the times. Some might even say it's a bag of dicks.
Like, why would he? I get why he would do it to an extent of like, let me keep her spirits up, but she can handle it. She's a woman. She needs to know that these are her last.
She needs to know what's going on in her own fucking health. Yeah.
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 Like, come on.
Either way, her diagnosis was terminal, and she may or may not have even known. And on August 22nd, 1951, she made her most famous speech at a rally for her husband's reelection. That I looked up pictures of it. They had like huge posters, one of his face, one of her face, which also these rallies, again, are just kind of giving me that MAGA cult of personality rallies, that they're not just political rallies. It's like people's whole personalities. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. We're worshiping a personality, or I don't know. I get it.
It's weird. And so made a really, really important speech at this rally. People were like chanting and praising her name and begging her to run as vice president. She makes this really impassioned speech where basically she doesn't accept it. And then as soon as she walks off the stage, she faints.
She did live a long enough life to vote for the very first time, which was great.
That's cool.
Yeah. So she did vote from a hospital bed, and Juan won the election, and I hope she voted for him because I'm pretty sure she did. She also thought that he was Juan in a million.
She really did, yeah.
He owed so much of his popularity to her, though. But for her part, she's not doing so great.
So there is reason to believe from like recent reevaluating her body that, and because I'll link in the show notes this story about this American doctor that says he performed a lobotomy on Eva, which also may have even shortened her life even more. But the story goes that from her hospital bed, Eva is not in a great state of mind, and she gets in her head that they need to arm their supporters with automatic rifles.
Who?
She's like, we need to arm all the men and women that support Perón. We need to send them with weapons, and we need to storm the Capitol, basically. And we need to kill or imprison all of our opposers. So it's said that one was like, just knowing how much weight her word carried in the public, it said that that's when he was like, let's get a doctor that knows how to do a lobotomy, because if her speaking like that gets out of this hospital, they're going to fucking do it. They're going to fucking do it, and we're going to have civil war. And what does that make you think of, Nathan? It gives me January 6th vibes.
It does, 100%.
And supposedly that's when one ordered a lobotomy. A lobotomy is just supposed to make you less emotional, I guess.
Oh, gosh. So the link is in the show note, and it's an article from the National Library of Medicine. But it basically says that Juan was like, shit, we got to do this. And it was supposedly just a way to quiet her down.
And it did. It super did.
Yeah.
After his reelection, Evita was seen one more time riding in a car with him and like at his being sworn in. This parade they rode in together. She wore a big, heavy coat, a big, heavy fur coat to hide how much weight she had lost. She was down to 79 pounds.
Oh my goodness.
And under her coat, they had fashioned like these crutches to help her stand up, but they hid it under her coat because they didn't want people to know how sick she was, which to me, it sounds like looking at her, you would have just known anyway.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just use your eyes, my friends. On July 26, 1952, Eva Peron, a.k.a. Evita, she died, and she was only 33 years old. The day she died, the country went into mourning.
Yeah.
Sure, there were probably people who didn't care, didn't celebrate it, but the basis supporters, like, they lost their leader. This is like somebody that they considered a Fran.
Is my ham with friends.
My ham with friends. Like, she was the champion of the mayhem.
She was the champion for them peasants, you know? Radio shows were put on halt for the rest of the day. Movies were stopped. Cafes closed down. Before she had died, Juan had appointed her as the country's spiritual leader. Oh, okay. And so the headlines, they were very specific about how they said that she passed away. And the phrasing they use is that she entered immortality, which is a fancy word for she did.
This is also kind of giving me a little bit of like the Alamo Foundation whenever we did that whole thing. This kind of does start to segue into that
a little culty. Yeah.
It gets a little culty. So Ava's body laid in state, and she was given a state funeral, one that was, typically reserved for heads of state or somebody.
I think she was the first woman to get this kind of funeral in Argentina.
And nearly 3 million people attended her funeral.
Shit, that is so many people. That is wild. Mm-hmm. Now, most of the time, when we come to the death of our topic our main subject for that day, we are at the end of the episode. But we couldn't go out in season 7 like that. So like we said at the top of this episode, we're going to end this episode with some what the fuck. Nathan, since her death is not where her story ends, what the fuck happened next?
Okay, so Juan ends up summoning like the best embalmer ever to take care of Eva's body. So it's like the moment she died, like an hour later, the embalmers are ready to go to work.
Yeah, they were already on standby. They were already in the city. That is so weird.
The corpse is still warm, literally.
Yeah.
Literally. So this doctor's name is Dr. Pedro Ara. And the morning after, he ordered the body to be moved to the National Confederation of Labor, which when it was being moved, around 20,000 supporters ended up lining the street and like crowding around the car and following it with her body. It was so crowded that 8 people got crushed to death.
Shit.
So they're following her body and like 8 people get crushed to death. And at this point, Dr. Otter didn't really embalm bodies with the traditional method. So usually we kind of do it in almost like the old Egyptian way, which is like removing the organs and
get it all cleaned
doing
out
all
in
of
there.
that. Yeah, get all that cleaned out, pump you full of a couple of chemicals. But Dr. Ara took this to a whole new level. He actually just made one incision in her neck and one in her foot.
Okay.
And then pumped her full of like alcohol, glycerin, and some other like waxy stuff to like preserve her body. So he didn't remove her organs, is what I mean. It's like that's not usual.
That is weird. Okay.
But he's like, he feels like he's an artist for embalming, I guess. So
everybody's got to have goals, I guess.
he's on the cutting edge.
Okay.
He's avant-garde in the embalming world. So this process took an entire year and cost the government $100,000.
$100,000? I don't know how much embalming usually costs, but I know it's usually done in like a day, right?
Yeah. But this was like that avant-garde embalming where it costs you $100,000. Maybe you'll get pictured with Lady Gaga. I don't know.
Because when someone's being embalmed now in our typical society, right, it's just so that their body is preserved for a few days, maybe a few weeks to have a funeral. It sounds like they've got other plans.
Oh, they've got some major plans because there was a memorial depicting the working class man, and it was supposed to be bigger than the Statue of Liberty. So that gives you some size scale there.
Okay.
And Evita's body would be placed at the base. So she would be an ace of the base, if you will.
Stop it. Shut the fuck up.
It's very Stalin-esque though, right?
Sign.
Like this is very Stalin-esque, like Lenin, like let's preserve our bodies for all eternity so that people can come see them. Ugh, it's so gross. It's so weird. Well, obviously building a monument the size of the Statue of Liberty, girl, that's gonna take some time. That's gonna take a lot of time. So they just stash her body in her old office. Yeah, they keep it there for 2 years.
Like some kind of fridge?
Yeah, no fridge, just 2 years sitting in her office. And I'm like, she spent 20 hours a day there. I'm sure she doesn't want to spend the rest of her life there. Like,
you know what, though? I bet her soul is there doing some residual haunting anyway.
Yeah,
so...
right. The building's not torn down now. Can we go and do a seance, please?
Road trip.
Road trip. So 2 years, her body stays stashed in her old office. And you know what? The political tides, they keep it changing. So Peron might not be as popular anymore.
Okay.
Which is bad for Juan, but even worse for Evita's dead body. Juan is deposed and has to go into exile, so he runs off to Spain.
Where they love him.
Yeah, they always have loved a little bit fascist leaning. Not anymore, but I don't want to hate on them.
But right then,
But then. Meanwhile, Dr. Ara is just, chilling, like weekend at Bernie's with the dead Evita's body, just hanging out.
I mean, they must be best friends at this point. Like, A year. He works on her for a year. 2
And then
years.
she's stashed in her office for 2 years. Like, let the woman's body rest, please. But no. He ordered the body to be moved at that point. So it was like, all right, there's a new president in town. Argentina.
So Juan ordered the body, or the new president
The
ordered
new president
the body to
did. So the new president goes in power. Juan runs into hiding. New president is like, okay, I don't want, this Renaissance sort of thing happening where there's a dead body that causes an uprising and inspires a movement like it would in the Renaissance era.
Just put her in the ground. Let's just put her in the fucking ground.
Let's just move her secretly in the night. Bury her somewhere where nobody knows. So a guy named Carlos Koenig was put in charge of this. So he gets the body from Dr. Ara in the middle of the night and transport it in his little truck to Chacarita Cemetery. Nailed it. But man, he was driving on that road for so long. He just super duper tired and he needed to take a nap.
What?
So he takes a nap.
It sounds like an episode of Arrested Development.
And then he wakes up from ye old nap and he notices that there are candles and flowers surrounding his truck, as if someone's paying homage to, the dead body in the back of your truck. So I think he's paranoid. Because he's like, they know. There's people that are following me that know if Evita is in the back of my truck. So something happens, I might be dead. So he gets another truck, puts her dead body in the back of that, drives off to get to the cemetery, takes another nap again.
Dude needs to take less naps. Hot take. Take less naps in your truck.
He wakes up from the nap again, and the flowers and candles are surrounding the truck again. And he's like, I am going to get shot. Like, if I do something with this body, they know it's her in this car. So he's like, fuck it. I'm going to store her in my attic.
We talk about choices on this show a lot. And sometimes choices are made. And this was a choice that was made. Good choice? Probably not. But a strong choice. Strong choices were made. Big opinions were had. I want to see his pros and cons list that I'm sure he made to come to this place.
I really do need to see it myself. But there were other people that thought he made some choices and really wanted to see the pros and cons list. And that was namely the new president in Argentina. He's like, bro. What? No.
He's like, so let me get this straight. You couldn't quit taking naps in your car, so people found you and figured out what was going on. So you just thought, I'll just throw a body in my attic.
The end. Okay.
Cool.
So he gets fired, obviously. Yeah. And they decide at this point, they're like, okay, we have to do something with the body. And so they decide to transport it to Milan, Italy. Okay. So she's buried under the name of Maria Magi Magistras, which, choices. Okay. Just don't know why you didn't send her body to Spain.
Yeah.
Beyond me. Okay. Not my choice. Maybe
no one asked Nathan.
No one asked Nathan back in 1952. It's probably like 1955 or 56 at this point. Yeah, you get it. So they end up, her body stays there. At least her body stays there for 16 years in a grave, buried in Milan, which is nice until she's not done yet.
Let the woman rest. How's the body looking though? Like, this has been 16 years. Did that embalming, like, is she holding up or?
We'll get to that. Okay. We'll get to that. Okay. After the story of everywhere she goes, we'll talk about how she held up.
It's the Rainbow Tour Part 2.
Oh, honestly. Gosh. This is the graveyard tour. So they end up, she stays there for 16 years. New Argentinian president was overthrown by Peronists. And they're like, yay, Peron, we want the body sent to Juan Peron. Like, dig up that body, send it to Juan. He needs to see his long departed wife. Like, why is this not a thing? So,
and he's now remarried, right?
Yes, he's now remarried to a woman named Isabel.
Okay.
So they order a colonel and a rabbi to walk into a cemetery and dig up her dead body, send it to Madrid, Spain, to see her dearly loved Juan.
You know what? I bet that rabbi woke up and that was not what he thought his day was going to entail.
Let's go dig up this dead body in Milan.
Okay.
Dr. Ara at this point is called up. It's like 16 years later, and he's like, "Oh my God, my pet project. I can't wait to see how
My
it
life's
held
work.
up." And he was like, "Oh, body held up pretty well. Gave it a little nip, gave it a little tuck. You know, she had some work done, and this is fine for her. We love this for her." And at
Sure.
this point, she ends up staying in Madrid, Spain with Juan. So she stayed in Madrid until 1973 in Juan's dining room.
Put this bitch in the ground and leave her there on your dining room table? Like sitting at the table or like laid out?
Laid out. Yeah. And Juan's new wife, Isabel, would comb her hair every morning and style her hair for her. This is totally fine. This is fine.
Nathan, we've been doing this show for 7 years now. There have not been a lot of times. I'm not a speechless bitch. I always have speeches. Dining room table.
Fixing her hair in the morning. This
For
is again like,
years?
this is where it gives me the Alamo Foundation whenever we did that cult, where it was like they just kept the dead body around everybody all day long. So it's 1973 and Juan is elected to president of Argentina again. And he left Madrid with his new wife, Isabel, and they decided to just leave the body in Madrid. Hanging
What
out.
is the customs process of bringing your dead wife? Like, well, maybe it was just too much paperwork. Just leave it there.
You're the president of Argentina, though. I'm pretty sure you can bypass some of that paperwork.
I don't know, man.
But at this point, Juan is kind of losing it. Let me just put it plainly. Like his health is going down. He's not doing very well. He ends up dying a year later. And his wife, Isabel, it's kind of like the Evita wannabe. Oh, I said it. Because
well, she was his vice president, right?
she was his vice president and became president at that point.
And she didn't do great, did she?
Yeah,
Hey, yay for first female president, but
not during a great time. No, and your husband wasn't super awesome either.
Yeah.
And then some more weird shit happens. So
Oh, good. There's more.
there's some corpse bartering. Apparently, the Peronist captured this other guy's, the old president of Argentina's dead body, and we're like, "Hey, we're going to hold this for ransom. You better give us the body of Eva Peron or else we're going to desecrate this other body." I don't know. And Isabel at this point is like, this is also fucking weird. Fine.
Yeah. You know what? You had me at this is fucking weird at corpse bartering. That's not a phrase I've ever heard anybody say before.
Yeah, right. Bartering for corpses. So Evita's body is finally returned to Buenos Aires, and it's there that she met her final embalmer, Domingo Telechea. And
Because that's what she needs, more embalming.
yeah, she needs more embalming. Well, she needs another nip and a tuck. Like, she needs some more plastic surgery. And this is where we finally get our full view of how the embalming held up during all this time and
Okay.
all this movement. So basically, this embalmer looks at her and you're like, okay, she really needs a pedicure, aka her feet were just jacked up. And you know what? If I've been crammed and transported, I would want a pedicure too. Give her a damn pedicure.
I would just want to be resting in fucking peace at this point.
Yes. And he did note that there were some other parts of her, like her face and things that were a little smushed because she may have been crammed in a coffin that was too tight. But he did say that the embalming actually stood the test of time and her body still looked pretty okay. Like, other than those minor cosmetic things, he was able to like basically make her body up and put her on display in front of everybody, and she looked fine.
Cool. Oh my God, just fucking cremate me. Jesus.
I know at this point. So Juan Perón and Eva Peron were put on display in the presidential residence at Los Olivos, and Juan's casket was closed. Which is like, dude, you just died a couple days ago. This bitch has been dead for like 21 years and she's got the open casket. What?
Okay.
Yeah. So we're not quite done yet because her body
Okay.
is still not done. Isabel, Peron's new
Yeah.
wife, she was finally deposed herself. And at that point, they ordered the body to Evita to be moved to Recoleta Cemetery with her family.
Like her mom and them.
Yes. So
Yay.
she's basically buried in this steel bunker underground that nobody can ever break into, that will never be able to steal her body, because it should be that way. She's been moved around so much. Let her sleep permanently now.
Oh my God. Yeah, that is so funny that they have to like put her under lock and key so people will quit digging her up and moving her. That is bananas.
So enough about dead bodies.
Oh God, please.
Let's just talk about her legacy.
Boy, howdy. Woo, that it is. We've even already gotten a lot of feedback for people being like, that's an evil person, right?
Yes, we are fully aware.
And then there are people who are like, an icon amongst us. Like, there's no consistency in her legacy, actually.
None. Like, she's loved, she's hated. Even in Argentina, some people still celebrate her birthday. Like, it's still celebrated. They even opened up at the 50th anniversary of her death, they opened up a museum in honor of her, which #goals.
I mean, that's kind of cool. I like museums. I think she sticks out for a number of reasons. We love a rags to riches. We love a Cinderella story. Absolutely. But like, she's kind of, for some people, and I think it's because like before her death, one appointed her as the country's spiritual advisor or whatever. So I think that kind of feeds into this. She's almost like mythology type of figure.
Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of her supporters still kind of feel, as though like, oh, she's this ordained by God sort of figure.
I mean, I'm surprised she's not a saint, with how some people talk about her. And I mean, then there's the part of her legacy, which is the rights for women, the face of suffrage in Argentina. So it's a mixed fucking bag of emotions when it comes to Eva Peron, for sure.
Yeah, she did so many good things, but because she did a couple of bad things, it completely erases
fascism.
Everything.
Yeah,
because fascism's not cool, guys. She was controversial. Her husband was a fascist, and she not only leaned into it, she embraced it and became the reason for his success.
And she saw the rest of the world, what they thought about fascism. And she had the chance to come back and say, hey, I've learned some things from leaving the country. And she didn't. But then she also built hospitals and gave women, working mothers, maternity leave and
free education, free health care. Like, she did great things, but it's like, oh.
It's Sichi all over again. I didn't realize how many parallels I was going to see with Empress Sichi and Eva Peron, but here we are.
It's very true. And when have we ever shied away from talking about a powerful, controversial woman?
And we never will. The day that we shy away is the day that you're like, oh, I think Katie and Nathan have been kidnapped. And these are...
These are AI generated.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Controversial. Her husband was a fascist. She leaned into it. They harbored Nazi refugees, like actively invited Nazi refugees. But then free healthcare and women's rights. So, I think this was a very interesting way to end this season, Nathan. You want to do it again in season 8? Ooh.
Yeah, of course. What would you have done if I said no? No.
I'd be like, what? All right. Well, guys, we are going to, over the summer, we're going to be rerunning some older episodes. We'll probably run some episodes from Patreon on the main feed, but we do not stop in the off season over on Patreon. So you know what? If you want to just sign up for a month and then download everything and leave, we don't give a fuck. We'd love to see you over there, but don't worry, the main feed's not going anywhere either.
Yes. Love you guys. Cheers, bitches.
Cheers, bitches.